Uncle Fester?
Ha! I'm not your uncle. I'm a regular fester.
How you doing, Wade?
Can't complain. Life is good over here.
You know, for somebody who practices some of the darkest demonology out there, you've always had such a positive temperament to you. I've always admired that of you.
It's because Satan loves you.
So anyhow, today is on this Magic.TV presents. We got something a little special going for us. We are talking about what?
We're talking about prosperity, and not
Ah,
like the prosperity gospel where the preacher is preaching prosperity, but it really ends up just being you sending him money. We're talking
ah,
about actual prosperity, which is
ah.
different from having money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually kind of like where I'd like to start off with that, is because a lot of people think, well, being wealthy is the same thing as being rich,
Not
but
true.
it's not. It's not even close. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I always tell people that the difference between wealth and riches is, any idiot can win the lotto and have a shit ton of money in their bank account, but wealth is the ability to generate income. If you
Mhm.
do a riches spell, you might end up with like another 60K in the bank, but that might not last. Sorry, I'm just promoting. That might not last too long. So, wealth, on the other hand, is that ability to generate income, and that's actually more helpful.
I would even broaden it from there, that where wealth is access to resources.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have, maybe if your family doesn't, if you're not walking around with 5 grand in your pocket just for walking around money, but maybe, you could get 5 grand at a moment's notice, or you could get, say, if you're like, oh man, I need a new car, and you just have access to cars.
That's
It's
one,
not
or
necessarily something that you would need to spend money on because it's all there for you. That's like legitimate wealth,
or
when you
even
have access to all the things that you would spend the money on without having to spend the money.
or even the ability to just get the things that you need, because sometimes money is not necessarily what you need. Because like a lot of people, when they do money magic, they assume at times that it's just a lottery spell, and that ends up going sideways, don't you think?
It really does. For a while there, when I had a Magic Coffee Night and we were doing the summits at the bookstore,
Mm-hmm.
the there was a couple of druids
Mm-hmm.
that they had their own little fellowship going on, but they would also participate in the stuff in the store because we welcomed all the local traditions. And they always wanted to do prosperity magic. They always wanted to do wealth magic. And because they were always poor, but they were poor of spirit. So they were poor of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
They, you know, they would do stupid things with their money. Like they had, I forget exactly what the circumstances were. They came into a little bit of money and they bought a Stargate. They
Stargate.
bought, like, yeah, like an actual model from the prop thing from the show,
Uh-huh.
and they had it like signed by the cast, and it was like, a few $1,000s for this prop, and I was like, what the hell are you gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna use it for a scrying mirror. That's actually kind of neat, but at the same time, don't you need new tires?
Don't you need to eat?
What's going on with that? So it doesn't matter if you have wealth. If you just squander it on dumb things, you're always going to be poor.
There's another block though to money magic that people are not aware of, and you know what that is? Because I'm
Tell
always
me.
a believer of magic is follows the path of least resistance. So if I were to say want to manifest 1,000,000 pesos, good chance I would manifest it through tarot readings or classes. But the block comes from the fact that sometimes people write checks that their ass can't cash. In other words, like it's very rare that 1,000,000 pesos is just going to land on my lap. If it's going to follow the path of least resistance, I'm probably going to have a shit ton of demand, right? But if there's that resistance in me that's like, oh man, that's like 5,000 tarot clients. Oh, I don't want to do that. My energy is actually pushing it away. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So in other words, some people just don't want to do the work.
Well, the other thing is that magical physics it's real physics. It's the exact same thing. So if you look at if I say, well, okay, I'm trying to manifest hot clam chowder. Well, okay, how does that usually happen? Well, for me, you open the can, you mix it with milk, you put it in the pot, you heat it up. There's a set process by which these things happen. So if I sit in my room and I don't do these things, I'm not going to manifest, no matter how hard I'm pushing on that, because there's that, like a quantum wave function that stands between you and manifestation. I'm going somewhere with that. I'm not quite. My coffee hasn't kicked in yet. There's like this quantum wave function where it's both. You both have clam chowder and you don't have clam chowder until you can actually pop the quantum wave function. So what you end up with is it's the tension is pushing until something moves.
Okay, no. I'll simplify it. Okay. Remember, magic are just simply force modifiers, right? But 1,000,000 times 0 is still 0. So if you're not putting in anything to make it happen, it's not going to fucking work, right?
Well, exactly. Do you remember the old football games where you turn on the thing and it would vibrate and the pieces would move because you set the little thing for the pieces to go? It doesn't matter how brilliantly you set up your play. If you don't turn the switch on, the board doesn't vibrate, the pieces don't move. They're still locked in place. So if you look at the ways a person might come across 1,000,000 pesos, you look at like, well, how do other people how does this happen? It doesn't just, show up on your doorstep in a duffel bag. I mean, yes, physically it could. It's extremely unlikely because it follows the path of least resistance, like you were saying. So you look at the ways that it could happen, and you say, okay, I'm going to leave myself open to a few of these options at least. And then start pushing, because if you're banging on the door but the door's still locked, it's not going to open.
True.
You have to at least leave room for it to manifest.
That's true. And another thing that I want to throw down on it too is the idea that sometimes you need to widen your vessel. Like for one example, I made the mistake years ago, and I tell the people about this in my manifestation masterclass, that sometimes even wording your spell and your magic is what makes or breaks you. Like a couple of years ago, I decided
wording is everything.
Yeah, I was going to experiment with a spell that says, I earn 1,000,000 pesos a month from tarot reading. Fuck me. It nearly fucking killed me. You know why? At the rate I was going, I'd have to do like 70 readings a week, like 8 readings a day, no stopping. And that's what's going to manifest it. Now, the creepy thing was this. It was actually working. The demand was going up. And I was just fucking white in the face because of doing too many goddamn readings. So I was like, wait a minute, this is not the most efficient way of earning 1,000,000 pesos. So by simply rephrasing my magic and say, I earn 1,000,000 pesos a month from my passions, the things that are life-giving to me, it became so much easier because I got product endorsements, I got sponsors, I got retainers and executive clients, and that actually made it a lot more manageable. But if I was just saying from my tarot, Jesus Lord.
Yeah, that's because the thing is, the wording, that's your legal contract with the universe.
Yep.
So if you say you want to do these things, and especially the one that was actually kind of, you didn't put a lot of thought into that.
I was stupid.
Or because if you start to think about your quality of life, when your whole day is being open to other people's impressions, what are your off hours like? You're walking down the street and you're just like, oh, this guy's gay, this guy's drunk, this person's cheating on her husband, this person's cheating with that person, and everything is just blowing right through your brain hole. Every stray impression on the surface of everyone else's aura is going right into your face.
Very true. Like, you make yourself basically a sponge. So one thing I've also realized when doing things like that, especially when it comes to money magic, is there's another thing that people miss out on, aside from the not willingness to do the work. All right, because a lot of people, when they do magic, Like you said, they just want a duffel bag to appear on their porch. And dude, I gotta be honest with you. If I opened my door tomorrow and there was a bag there and there was $1 million, I wouldn't be jumping for joy. I'd be thankful.
Yeah.
I'd be really freaking suspicious. I'd pull out my gun.
Somebody's coming looking for that money.
Yeah. I say, hey, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Shit's dangerous. Now, another thing people miss out on, and we were talking about it, riches and wealth. They're not clear on what their definition of wealth is. Did you know that? Yeah. Some people think, wealth, I have a lot of money. Okay. But like for me, for example, my definition of wealth is being able to sleep for as long as I need to. You know what I mean?
Because I realize that's what you really want out of your day, right?
Yeah, because that's what gives me a fulfilling day, a wealthy day. Because even if I was making like $10,000 a day, but if I had to wake up at 6 a.m. and I'm like violated on an internal level, it's non-sexual prostitution. You see what I mean? So part of me being wealthy is that luxury of just being able to sleep in is number one. It doesn't mean I'm not disciplined. It's just that that's how my body works. And number two, being able and having the freedom to pause and say, hey, I want to have lunch with my son. Hey, I want to watch a movie with my daughter. Not being a slave to the system, if you get what I'm saying, bro. Like, me, like,
sleep is one of those things that some people eat better than others. Some people, they dress better than others. Some people are warm, they have a nice warm place. But sleep is something that everyone needs pretty much the same amount and quality of. That's just the condition of wearing the meat suit, is that you have to sleep and you need a certain amount and a certain quality of sleep every day.
Exactly. And some days you need more than others, and some days you need less. And, it's going to catch up with you if you keep on, running the midnight oil with that one. So it's important that you define what your meaning of wealth is. Because like like you said, a lot of people say, I just want the lottery win. That's why I liked how you changed the word to prosperity. But let's just do some variants of it. Let's do some riches magic, quick hard cash. Let's do some median magic. Like, okay, I've got a pretty good one. Like I got a new car. And let's do some wealth magic that like, wow, I'm living comfortably. So let's start off with the quick cash. If Wade Long needed an extra $1,000 right now, what would Wade Long do?
Well, honestly, since most of the ways that I've gotten just happen to have $1,000 extra is from just like a quick, like a side piece gig going, where I would just summon someone who needed something. If someone, if they would be like, oh yeah, I need someone who can make this item, or I need someone who can do this one thing, and I'll give them $1,000 for that. That's usually how I would do it.
What kind of magic would you make that happen?
Honestly, for that, I would probably just tell one of my Goetic spirits.
So you go
like, hey, just go find me. Go find me. That I know that there's someone in this part of the county that needs something done, and they'll give me $1,000 for it. Go find me that person, like an agent, because it's a very specific thing. I would either use one of the Goetic spirits or a talisman to just summon that. That's usually the way that sort of manifests. If I needed $1,000, and that would be how I've gotten that in the past.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. So for those of you, are there any particular spirits that you'd recommend for that quick $1,000? Like anybody you can say, yeah, this dude really summons well. Because like if we're talking about Goetia, once you're done sharing yours, I'd like to suggest one as well that I was very happy with.
Any of the ones that they do communication, or they will bring you knowledge. I found that those ones are actually really good for kind of making the go-between.
Yeah.
Because then they'll be like, okay, so I tell this guy he brings me knowledge. I'm going to go look on Craigslist and find some sketchy bum who wanted a particular thing made, or needs something repaired, or needs something welded.
I think it's more of like the information, right? Get you the inside scoop. All right, because like for me personally, one experience I've had, I'd like to throw down. First was the Spirit Bune. He really did well with money. Had a funny story about that, but I can't talk about it on the show yet. Maybe in a year I'll share about it. That was hilarious. Another one is Furcas. A student of mine summoned him with the intention that please help us pay our rent for the next 2 years. And woe and behold, the next day people were donating money like crazy to Mysterium. And I'm like, whoa. And the thing is, when we said pay our rent, we thought we were like our places. It actually covered the rent for the Mysterium Center for 2 years. So it was like, shit, we should have said one's rent. But there is one story I want to share. And it comes from this very interesting book that I'm hoping I can get a semi-authority to be part of and talk about it. And have you ever heard of this book called The Miracle of New Avatar Power?
I've seen it. I haven't read it.
Okay, all right, man. You got to hear this because it's all about wealth and money, quick money magic, right? You know what? I used to be part of this. I still am part of this forum. It used to be called Evocation Magic. Now it's called Studio Arcanus. And what I like about it is that these are real practitioners who seriously share their input, their experiences. So it's one of the best forums to be part of on the internet when it comes to occultism, especially during the ye old forum days. Then I saw this book, The Miracle of New Avatar Power, and I was reading through it. And dude, it sounded like something of a 3 a.m. 1-900. Oh, now you can have your very own $1,000. Just like, and I was reading through it. I'm like, this is so fucking cheesy. It's like it's cheese magic. But the thing is this, on Studio Arcanus, there's an entire sub-forum of all these seasoned practitioners who swear by how powerful it was. So there was some smoke that, where there's smoke, there's fire. I was like, wait a minute. I saw some of the names there. There's no way in fucking hell these guys are fakes. There's got to be something here. So I said, you know what, for shits and giggles, I'm going to give it a try. So I got a copy of it. And it's basically a lot of like self-repetition work. And one of it was this spell of this spirit called, I'm going to post it here, Nitika. Okay? That brings wealth, right? So I did the spell to pretty much communicate with Nitika asking for money because I could use some money. So I started it on a Wednesday. Okay, it started on Wednesday, and I was like, okay, this seems like cheesy as fuck, but I'm gonna give it a try. I did it, and basically, it's the easiest fucking thing in the world. You simply repeat out loud an entire invocation of sorts until you get into kind of like a relaxed state, and then you say the invocation to Nitika, and then you just go to sleep. Doesn't get much more complicated than that. It's pretty easy, right? I mean, you and I do harder stuff on a Wednesday, and you're supposed to do it until you get the magic you want. Then on Thursday, I used to work for the government out here, a contractual agent of the government. And what happened was my previous office, which was in the same compound, said, Mr. Rubin, you have to come back to the previous office because there's some back pay here for you. You need to pick it up. So I'm like, that's probably like only like $50. I won't pay any attention to it. Friday said, Mr. Rubin, you need to come here. This back pay of yours is ready to be picked up. And on Monday, they actually sent a summons, like, you must or else you're going to be sanctioned. I'm like, what, for my back pay? Fuck, okay. So I went there. I'm like, what the fuck? Handed me an envelope. There was $1,000 worth of pesos in it.
Nice.
So I was like, holy shit. This cheese magic really, really works. So for those of you who are interested in the name of the book is The Miracle of New Avatar Power. And ever since then, I was kind of a believer that like, this is something new. And I was open to it. So if you guys can get your hands on a copy of the book, it's very worthwhile. I'm trying to get Brother Moloch to come on the show to talk about it because there's something funny about it. I mean, there's something funny on how simplistic it is, but how well it works. So
there's also the fact that in the right hands, any kind of magic can be good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, depending on how it's presented, on how it's marketed. Ray Buckland did this one book on it's the magic of Chantomatics, and you're like, my God, who gave him this title?
Mm-hmm.
This is the dumbest sounding thing. And then you look through, and the chants were like like he just have something in Spanish, like he's just saying money, money, money in Spanish. You're like, that's not. But the thing is that the physics, the actual nuts and bolts of the method were solid. And I don't know if someone said, hey, we need you to write this book on chanting. He said, here's the book. And they're like, nah, fluff this up. We need another 100 pages in here. And he did. I don't know what the deal was with it. But the thing is, it works really well. The method works really well. But there's a lot of, like you're saying, cheese in it.
Well, that's the funny thing about it. Wait, I'm just going to turn off my video for 1 sec. That's the funny thing about it, Wade, because even though there's cheese, doesn't mean that there's not nachos. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the next aspect. We're going to talk about the median scale magic. Let's say this is enough for maybe a new car, a couple grand. You know, we got to put a down payment for the house. It's not just chump change anymore. This is some heavy hitting stuff. What kind of magic would you use, Wade?
Honestly, I would use the same stuff. If it's if I'm doing something that's large, or that there is that there's something that I need to actually make room in my life for it. I usually start by making room for it. Say if I'm looking for you know, a new appliance or a new or say a lathe for out in the shop or something. I'll clear out a space for it. Move all the things, you know, reroute, you know, run a new, you know, power outlet and everything. And if anyone asks me, they're like, what's that for? And I said, that's where I'm putting my new lathe. They think, oh, when are you getting that? I don't know. Well, where are you getting it? Don't know that either. This is where it's going. It's on its way here. This is where it's going to land. I don't have. So a lot of it is going to be about adopting your mindset first. You have to create the landing space for it. And then you go back and you do like your regular thing. Like, okay, now I'm going to summon my lathe. But now that it's got an avenue of manifestation, it's going to make it a whole lot easier.
It's like one of the wizard's laws is deserve victory, right? But here's the thing I'm going to tell you. You know a mistake a lot of novice magicians make when it comes to dealing with magic? What element do you think they assume money is corresponding to? What do you think?
Well, traditionally, money would be earth or pentacles in the tarot. Okay. But I always looked at money as air.
Yeah, me too.
Because money is a form of communication. It's not. It's a way of saying I did this work, and they communicated that, where they turned that work into pieces of paper, and I take that paper and I give it to someone else for the stuff that I want.
Exactly.
It's communicating my work to the person who's selling the thing I want.
So, like, for old new mages, if you're using earth energy for your money magic, unless you're in the mining industry, I don't really think that that's going to work too well for you. Because also consider it like this: all money nowadays is digital, right? Well, not all, but a majority of it is. I mean, like nowadays, hey, wait, I need $50. I'll PayPal it to you. We didn't even see the $50. And then you're going to send that to the grocery, and that's what's going to get you paid. It's a digital world. So now the concept.
Well, I don't remember the last time I've been to the bank. Nobody goes to the bank anymore, like an actual physical bank anymore. Use banking apps.
Exactly. So going back to it, knowing that the energy is no longer like, you know, like coins. People think, oh, I'm going to invoke Earth because of the coins. Dude, you probably is more poor than you think if all you got around your house are coins, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, now Earth is good for wealth magic if you're trying to summon stuff.
Materialize.
Like for that new lathe, it's like if I'm trying to skip the money part of it and I'm just summoning the lathe, there I would use earth magic.
Yeah, so if you're trying to actually bring it into form, like a house, I'm going to use earth to build the fucking house, right?
Exactly.
All right, now
so that would be for me.
Here's the thing,
but yeah, for the most part, if you're just trying to get, or say trying to increase your income, then you would definitely be working with air.
Yes. Because
that's more, you're just trying to increase the flow of communication.
All right. Now, you know, just one thing I personally share. When I need more money, I'm actually very conservative when I do this because, you know, I don't know if they've heard people say this in the past, but mages are extremely lazy. That's why they practice magic. In other
Pretty
words,
much.
they don't want to be fucking overwhelmed with things. So, like, first and foremost, I am going to use Jupiterian energy. So I'll be using invoking rituals of Jupiter for expansion. Okay. But then I will also invoke mercurial energy, communications, so that people know. People get the gist out. I create new things. I sell new things. Money's transferring better. Now, if I have that energy of both Mercury and like I do an invocation ritual on a Wednesday and on a Thursday, then what I would do is I'd invest it in some Bitcoin. Because number one, I don't see the coin, but that's data and I want that to expand. I want to get more. However, that's one thing I can do, or I do things with electronics. It's amazing on how much money you can actually earn on the electronic world. Like if Wade, like one thing I'll tell you, like if Wade just started posting all over the internet right now, magic lessons with Wade Long, I almost guarantee you there will be at least one person, at least one, that will say, all right, how much? I want to learn from Wade Long. See what I mean? You have used the element of Mercury and the element of Jupiter to expand your presence, your income, and your knowledge, and your ability to spread knowledge. So I tell people nowadays, especially when you're looking for like bigger picture items, it's more of a damage over time thing. That like, how many regular clients can you have? How many more followers can you have? How many more avenues? Like, how can you make the vessels or the different farms bigger to generate even more income for you? Because a lot of people, they just want this quick fix. Like another one is for the quick money. I have this oil that I sell with Must Be the Voodoo called Fast Cash. I'm sure you heard of it. I make my own Fast Cash oil. And people are amazed on how quick it works. Like, oh, wow, I found $500. Oh, wow, somebody bought 5 houses from me. Okay, but it's fast. You'll get it quickly, but it doesn't mean it will repeat itself. You got to keep repeating that. And there's something about like the goose that lays the golden eggs needs to rest. You can't like squeeze 1,000 eggs out at one time. You'll kill the goose. So you kind of have to, you know, calm your legs with that a bit and say, I'm just going to do something sustainable. Now, another thing to keep in mind when doing these kind of magic workings is if you're coming from want, it'll never be as sustainable as if you're coming from what you need. Because you know what you need. It's completely different from what you want. Like if you say, you know what, I need $5,000 a month. That's enough to live. I need that. That's unnegotiable. You're not going to bend for that. But if you say, I need $1 million a month, well, I guess I can live without it. That means that you were willing to bend away from that. Now, we're going to go ahead.
But at that point, that the path of least resistance is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll get, you know, that amount out of it. But yeah, the going from stuff that you need. This is why it's especially important to know your true will, know the things that you're supposed the function you're supposed to perform in this life. The world itself will bend over backwards to let you do it if you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing. So that's a huge help. You always get the things that you need if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But in terms of Jupiter, I had done this one operation in the 90s where Jupiter was a particular, I forget what sign it was in, and I forget what, there was another aspect. It might have been something with Mercury and then something where it was aspected well with my birth sign. Mm-hmm. But we had a really good setup with Jupiter and Mercury at the time. And Ebony had taught me this trick, and I found, I used a telescope, and I found Jupiter with it, and I popped a piece of amethyst into the eyepiece. And then I just did the hexagram ritual for Jupiter over the telescope. And I got to tell you, it wasn't like I was having, you know, $1 million a month fall into my lap, but any given thing I needed after that was always right there. By the time I needed something, I already had it.
You know what's funny about that, though?
Whether it was money or not.
Here's something funny, though. I've actually read in some sources that you got any kind of planetary energy you're working with, you've got to work with it in moderation. Because, like, for example, they said that Crowley and Bardon both used a lot of Jupiter energy. and they expanded, but they expanded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That if you use too much of it, you're likely to have effects on your body that you may not want. So unless you want to become an overweight tub of lard,
Well,
you
if you
got
do too much of anything, I mean, that's the thing. When you have prosperity, you lose your hustle. When you lose your hustle, you lose your muscle. So there you end up kind of like, well, I wanted to have more leisure in my life. And now you're floating in your hot tub, with a burnout cigar in your teeth. And you're like, when's the last time? I don't remember the last time my feet touched the ground. How long have I been here?
Mm-hmm.
You do start. That's the problem with getting the things that you want, is that you start to get soft.
Kind of true.
Plus, Crowley was doing every drug known to man and 4 that aren't. So, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the heavy hitter one. Now you're talking about the big bucks. You're talking about a big ton of money. You're talking about, like, you want the house paid for. What would Wade Long do?
That would be, well, there's an operation in it's in Abermellon. There's actually a codicil in there. They say that, yeah, once you've done knowledge and conversation, you are allowed to ask your angel for your fortune one time, and he will give you your fortune, like your allotment of wealth for your lifetime. Like,
Okay.
if you say, okay, I'm ready for this, I'm doing my will, I have a thing I'm supposed to do, and I want my money. And he will supposedly he will just bust it up. Now, I don't know what the method that they use for delivery, but that would be the thing that I would go to first, is I would make a direct appeal to my HGA and say, I want my fortune.
What happens
I'm
if
ready
you
to
spend
go
it
out and
all?
spread the word and do the things.
What happens if you spend it? Are you gonna end up a broke hobo for the rest of your life?
Not if I'm doing my will. If I'm doing my will, then it would probably come in the form of a big contract, or they would say, like, well, here's this deal where you end up with like a large inheritance, or because it seemed to be in windfall cash, like a lump sum where you get a thing. And if you leave open avenues for that, play the lottery occasionally, be nice to your wealthier relatives, that kind of thing, you never know how that's going to come in. It might be the sort of thing where a person's like, hey, I got this sketchy deal. I just need you to watch my back for 15 minutes. And, I'm going to close this deal for $12 million, and one of that is yours.
Not bad. You see,
that sounds like an acceptable risk.
I don't want to say that I'm wealthy, but I like to say that I'm comfortable. And I've come a long way from what I used to be. People don't know this about me, that when I used to live in the province here in the Philippines, there were days I would go without eating, because I was just like left to rot there. It was my moment in the desert, and I've experienced what it's like to beg for food from people. I've experienced what it's like to be hungry, to not know where your next meal is going to come from. And going from that to where I am now, I'm incredibly thankful and grateful for the universe for the blessings it's given me. One of the things, though, that's actually helped, though, so of course, I hope that this isn't the apex of it. I hope I just keep going upwards. But I've actually observed that finding a patron, a spirit, working with it, is a very good way of making sure that your needs are being met. Okay? Like, we've said this time and time again, man. I mean, all praise goes to the patron of Magic.tv, Belial, on the corner here, because he made things happen that would have never happened before. I don't think TarotCon would have happened without Belial's help. I don't think my latest book would have happened without Belial's help. Now, of course, it's not enough for me to go, hey, look at my little Lambo, but I'm not starving the way I used to, and that's a huge plus. My kids are properly educated. They're eating well. I could even help support my ex-wife, who's still a good friend of mine. I mean, in other words, there's a certain level of comfort. Now, am I at, like, example, Tony Montana level money? Not yet, but maybe if I find the right spirit. Like, it's funny because my apprentice, the one who told me to work with Belial, he said, hey, Rob, I got another idea. Have you ever thought about summoning a Maimon? Like the guy who's like above Belial? And I'm just like, dude, that's a different order in itself. And when I looked into it, I'm like, yeah, that's a bit too much work for now.
Yeah, and how
So
did that work out for Tony Montana? I forget. There's something happened. I don't remember. There's
kind
some event at his house. I don't know. I'd have to see the thing again. But it honestly though, to be comfortable is really what everybody wants.
uh-huh.
And a lot of people, just out of fear and insecurity, they have to start hoarding money, and they pile it up. And I had dated back in the oh my god, back in the early 90s. I had dated this woman who was legitimately rich. This was actually before that. This would have been the late 80s. She was legitimately rich, and she was always, she'd spend all day chasing money that was already hers. All day. This constant, because she'd say it's like scraping together sand and it's just running through your fingers. But she had like the big house on the hill, and she was going shopping all the time, and she had like the nice cars that she never drove, and all of these. So at some point you got to realize, like, when did you pass comfortable into discomfort? Because the money was just not making her happy anymore. So yeah, if you're comfortable, if you can sleep as long as you want, when you wake up, whenever you wake up, you can eat what you feel like. You go to the fridge, there's always food. If I go to my humidor, and I've always got nice cigars. If I can go out in my yard and be like, you know what, I'm going to spend today just lay in my hammock, drink coffee, and smoke cigars and read.
That's
if you have the leisure to do these things, guess what? You are richer than 99% of the human race because you are comfortable.
And one thing that I've also observed that helps in generating more prosperity in your life, believe it or not, generosity. Although that in itself is another kind of sword that it can be double-edged, because sometimes when you're generous to people, they take advantage of you, they shit all over you. I've had that happen to me more than once, but I've always remembered what it's like to be at the bottom of the barrel. I've always remembered what it's like to have people not take me seriously because I'm not famous, because people don't know me, because I don't have money. So in my position now, like, I always look out for the little guy. I'm like, I always say that, you never know that this dude who's just starting now might be the next Magic.TV host in 10 years. Or he might come out with his own book in 5 years. I mean, we don't know these things.
Or he might turn into a crackhead. It doesn't. What you're talking about is generosity for its own sake, not for the hope of return on it. Because if you look at it like, I'm going to do a good thing just for goodwill from the universe, that goes a long way towards smoothing out your own road. Because I had a student who showed like extreme promise. This guy, he reminded me of me when I was his age. So I decided I was going to be the kind of teacher that I wanted at that age. Taught him everything. I gave him everything. I basically wanted to see how much power you could pump into a teenager and see exactly what he would. I mean, he made his crossing. I think he was 16. Dude went and was just, he could have been the ultimate magician. He could have been like the ultimate warlock. This guy had all the power. And it destroyed him. He's dead now. He was just, he became a victim of his own indulgences.
That's another
But the fact of the matter, it doesn't change the fact that I just flat out gave this kid everything he wanted to know. Had him participate. I had him apprenticing directly. I taught him how to scry. I brought him into my temple. I, gave him all the practical experience of a real old world, apprenticeship. And, kids these days, he wrecked himself.
Well, here's
but I did my part.
I want to ask you this one. Have you ever had this happen that, like, you've put so much sauce into an operation, a working, and, like, it's like, it's not an overnight thing. It's something that's going to happen in maybe a couple of years. It's a long-term thing. And then like on the 3/4 mark, you just blow your wad and you got no fucking energy left. It's like now all of a sudden from going 100% to something you wanted to do, now you're down to like 0 and you could barely do it. Have you ever figured out how to refill your battery in cases like that?
Like during the ritual?
Or like, no way after, like it's a working. So the ritual we can do every day. But like, let's say the working is in 7 years to make Wade Long a congressman. All right. So now we're going to start building up all that energy. We're going to do everything we've been doing, and it's going great for year 1 to 5.
Did you feel that? Did you feel that when you said that? Don't say it too loud.
Well, you never know. Hey,
make me a congressman.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, if that's the will, that's the operation we're working on together. Then, like on the 5th year, all of a sudden, it's just like, it's like, wow.
Well, the thing is, you don't. If you lose your juice on something like that, there's a reason for it. So the thing is that it's if you kind of force it at that point, what you'll end up doing is working against yourself, because you'll resent the fact that you're doing the magic, and it'll rob it of its effect. So what you want to do, you want to change position, freshen it up a little bit, find a different way to come and say, okay, we're doing year 1, gonna be a congressman, year 2, gonna be a congressman, year 3, gonna be a congressman, year 4, year 5, and you're going, and you get there and you're suddenly like, I don't know if I want to do this. You're like, okay, gonna be an alderman, or gonna be, I'm gonna go into the House of Representatives, or I'm gonna work with a congressman, or because the tides will shift around you, and you got to shift with them. So if you suddenly feel the juice going away over here, you got to tack, reset your sails, and go a different way. You can still go towards the same goal, but you really want to shift to something that feels fresh in it. You say, okay, maybe something other than Congress. Maybe let's think a little bigger. Maybe we'll think governor. I am not thinking governor. But if you have to,
we're coming for you.
Oh my God. I watched that schoolyard beating the other night where he beat the living crap out of DeSantis, and it just made me feel good. But what all you have to do is shift your position, because if you're going like if you're feeling like the tension on it and you're keeping it going, suddenly the line goes slack. You got to find a way to take up the slack and keep that energy going, but just shift position a little bit. So say if you got your 7-year plan and things start shifting around year 5 because the world's changing around you. Maybe the thing that you wanted doesn't exist anymore. Maybe that's not going to be, maybe they actually need you be better served for your overall satisfaction in a different capacity. So listen to those times. When you suddenly lose your juice, listen to that, because there's a reason.
Because I noticed that happened to me like last year. Not 2022, like most of 2023. It had less to do with practicing magic and more of like using the juice that I had in me. If you get what I'm saying. Instead of like me doing a shit ton of rituals every day like I would do in 2022, it was more like, no. Or like it could even be equated to working out. Like there could be 1 year that you're like freaking Rambo, training 3 times a day and eating nothing but vegetables and lima beans, and then the next year you're just like, I don't got it in me anymore. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah, well, that's that's actually a perfect example. When you hit the wall, when you're in the gym, and you hit a wall, and some people say, "Hey, just bust through that wall. Keep going. Keep doing it, but do it harder until you get through the wall." At that point, I would always be in the gym like, okay, I'm going, I'm doing the stuff, I'm going, and like I suddenly run out of juice. Like, you know what? I'm going to hit the elliptical. I'm going to run for an hour. See if I, recover my, if that, you fall back and you do something different, going from strength training straight into cardio, because you still have the energy, you just lost your motivation. If you go into cardio and regroup, maybe you go back into the strength training. You're like, okay, great. Now I'm going to go over and do some flies.
So sometimes you need to be more conservative with how you use your energy. Like in my case, Like
The
in
wall is there for a reason.
yeah, in 2022, like for the first let's say 6 months of the year, I was training like I was in a Van Damme movie. I was doing like boxing 3 times a week, jujitsu twice a week, lifting weights, cardio, everything. Then all of a sudden, just there was a wall. Just didn't want to do it anymore. And I realized it's because there was a side of me saying, Rob, you're not training to fight Van Damme. That's not your purpose. That's not your true will. Your true will is to be sustainable in this enough, but at the same time, there are other aspects of yourself. So I started shifting focus to magic. But after that year, I kind of said to myself, wait a minute, I want to get back into this, but I'm not as insane as I was about it previously. Then, like, wait a
Right.
minute, I can't train myself on the bench for like 3 hours and not be able to read my occult books and say, oh, well, shit, I'm back to square one. So it's about synthesizing the different levels of existence that you have within yourself. And it's even with magic that, like, if you're trying to do something for like long-term money, there will come times you won't get results. So you need, like you said, you have to shift into something else. Like, okay, nobody's buying spell services. People might be interested in readings. And if they're not interested in that, they might be interested in space clearings. And if they're not interested in that, then I need to do something new. But you got to constantly keep reinventing yourself, because that's how you're going to get a very nice flow of income to enter your life, to keep your life sustainable in the long run.
Well, yeah, the world doesn't, when you get whatever it is that's paying your bills, the world doesn't just freeze at that point. If you're whether it's paying your bills, physically or spiritually, whatever it is that you're doing, it's satisfying your needs at the moment. But your needs are going to change. The world's going to change. Your needs will become different. So yeah, you always have to. When you hit a wall, it's there for a reason. If you're like, okay, I've invested a lot of my time and energy into doing this one thing, and now this suddenly dried up, it's not paying off anymore. Shift back to something else that's that can be similar. You can use the same skills, but you do a different thing, and that's the way to keep everything sustainable, whether it's wealth or magic.
Well, with that being said, especially when you're reinventing yourself, inviting all our viewers out there for the first ever run of my course, the Tarot 78 Spells for 78 Days, opening the last Sunday of January 2024. This is a 40-week long program, and I have a special announcement that don't be surprised if during our Zoom sessions, which we'll be getting twice a month, some amazing people from magic.tv might pop in and teach us a lesson directly from the master's mouth. So imagine if we're talking about working with Hecate, and I probably am having given the honor of having Jack Grail sit in with us. Wouldn't that be awesome? Or if we're talking about sigil magic and good old Phil Hine jumps in. I'm not saying they've committed to this. I'm saying imagine.
Let me know when you're doing the Tower card, because I got a good one for that.
You want to be there for the Jenga spell, don't you?
I actually have used the Tower card in the past for a very, very interesting and useful spell, and I had a great story about a success with it. So yeah, let me know when you're doing the Tower, and if you want, I can jump in on your class.
And well, you guys heard it from Wade himself. And yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I wanted to be more interactive with the people, because we're only given 2 Zooms a month. But then, like I said, I'm not going to say when, but for those people who joined the first course, don't be surprised. I mean, I know Wade would like to jump in. We could probably get Dave, maybe even good old Dr. Jeremy might even jump in and do some of his, his Jewish, magic, his Jewish Austin Powers magic. So anyway, that was an interesting segment tonight, and I hope everybody out there learned something about how to kind of like stack their wealth magic. At the end of the day, it only stops when you stop, but as long as you keep trucking at it, there's always like you said at the beginning of magic.tv, there's a trick to everything.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's
for every given thing in the world, there's an easy way to do it.
Very true. So that's magic.tv for tonight. Magic.tv presents with Robin Wade, Money Magic. Wade, stay on. We're ending the show.